Hey everyone, it's Liz Brassoff from Thrust Flight. I'm the Chief Flight Instructor here, and today I want to talk about CFI Academies and our academy here at Thrust Flight specifically. So let's start with what is a CFI Academy. In general, this is group training. You and other students that are also trying to become a flight instructor go through training together, where you have one instructor teaching more lecture style usually, and you get the benefit of having a cadre or a group going through that experience with you. CFI training is really unique compared to other ratings that you work towards as a pilot. You need to practice presentation skills and delivering information simply but accurately and to a depth that's needed for the student's own rating and progression. That is not something you can just do on the fly. Maybe if you've got a lot of teaching experience in your background or something, you'll have a more natural aptitude for it. But in general, you'll need practice teaching topics like this. And that's the benefit of having a group of students go through with you, is you already have peers that you can teach lessons to or you can receive lessons from and increase those skills. It's a really hard rating to train for individually or on your own. It can also help reduce the cost of training. When you train for a flight instructor certificate one-on-one, you hire an instructor that can train you for this and you guys have lessons individually. It costs a lot. You're the only one paying for that instructor's time, so it's their full instructor rate. In a group setting or in an academy, all of the students are sharing the expense of the instructor at the same time. So often can be a little bit more cost effective as you're pursuing this certificate, because so much of the CFI training is ground training. If you had to compare or put percentages, I would say the CFI training is 75% ground or maybe 80% ground and 20% flight training. So lots more time is going to be spent on the ground with your instructor or in an academy class. So our academy specifically, we offer in an accelerated format. What that means is we're going to put you through in a really short time frame all the instruction with the teacher, with the instructor, and from there you're now able to kind of customize your program. You can continue that pace and burn through the flight training portion and the practice that you need to do and get through a check ride ASAP. Or you get through the ground portion because you had that many days off in your work schedule or time off that you could take from your current job, and the flying portion you can work around your schedule because those appointments are much shorter. It's the normal hour-and-a-half local lesson with your flight instructor instead of spending multiple hours going over ground topics. So it really can help jumpstart your training and be flexible with maybe a current job you have or an accelerated timeline or deadline that you're trying to meet for this. So for our academy, we put you in a classroom with an instructor. Like I said, there'll be other students there. You're in this group setting, and we offer formal instruction for the whole day on some of the days. Usually the first day or two, right, it's the teacher teaching you all day. And then as you get more into that and you've learned how to write lesson plans and some of the expectations on you as you become a flight instructor, we start having you practice those skills. Because like I said, that's a big part of the check ride and a big part of becoming a flight instructor is, can you teach? And you need to practice to be able to say, yes, I can. So that's what we now start incorporating on the next couple days in your academy class. You'll still receive formal ground school from your instructor each day of the class, but now you'll start having portions of the class where you teach each other and really get to exercise those presentation skills and teaching skills overall, so that we can give you individual feedback on how to progress towards being check ride ready and exercise those skills and learn the new items you need to there. That's the accelerated ground portion, right? At the conclusion of that, now what? Now we enter the self-study phase for your flight instructor rating. So we need you to continue practicing and writing lesson plans. You're going to need to commit some of the content that you learned to memory. That's usually the fundamentals of instruction, some of the rules and procedures around giving endorsements, and then take a mock check ride and move on to actually doing your test, right? Meeting with the DPE on test day. The timelines vary, as I mentioned before. Are you working this around a work schedule, or is this something you're still giving an accelerated effort towards? And we offer both here at Thrust Flight, where you could even just do the ground portion with us and fly at your home airport or in your own airplane if that's a better option for you. So how do you organize your efforts after the formal ground school ends to progress towards check ride? I would say this is one of the common pitfalls we see students fall into when they exit academy, is they don't know how to organize their efforts or their studies, and so the check ride timeline just keeps getting pushed further and further and further out. And the more time that goes in between sitting through the Academy ground school and taking your Checkride, the more opportunities for your memory to fade and that you'll forget items you learned in class. That's not what we want as we're about to approach a pretty big Checkride. My best advice there is make flashcards on the fundamentals of instruction, practice those and drill them often so that you can commit it to memory. That's the expectation from most of the examiners. Write a lesson plan for every technical subject area in the PTS, or purchase lesson plans and make sure you've made them your own. You can actually teach from them, you know the content on them. There's not questions like, what is longitudinal stability? You've answered that, and now you could also explain it. And exercise those lesson plans. That's when you need a study group. Again, if you went through an academy like ours, you have these classmates who are trying to do the same thing that are going to be easy to collect together to work in a group. If that's not where you're at, right, this is when you need to call all your friends and say, I'm going to teach you all about flying and aviation, right, because you can't practice this alone. From there, you need to do a mock Checkride. Again, this is a pretty common pitfall I see from students. In our academy here at Thrustlight, the mock oral is included as part of your academy price, and I have students who still elect not to take one before they go to their Checkride. That's just such a disservice to yourself. Why wouldn't you want to go through a mock evaluation where you can prove to the instructor evaluating you that you are ready for this, you have these teaching skills, you have the knowledge that's required to be committed to memory, memorized, and then you'll feel so much more calm going into Checkride day. That's not true for every academy. You'll have to look to see if the one you purchase includes a mock oral, but like I said, in here at Thrustlight, it's included. The other big thing I think that's really helpful as a student is if you can put a timeline or put a schedule to your studies. So you went through the academy class, the formal ground school, in an accelerated number of days, right? Then go ahead and book your mock oral for a certain time period after that, whatever's reasonable on your schedule. If you're still giving the accelerated effort, I would say it's something that you could book maybe 3 days after the academy has ended. If you're semi-accelerated, maybe it's a week after, or if you're working around a job and you really only have the evenings to study, maybe it's 2 weeks after, right? From there, go ahead and book the Checkride as well. It's easy to move a Checkride appointment later. I say easy. It's easy if you're at a large school where they've got other students that can fill the spots and help coordinate it. It's really hard to find a Checkride last minute, is what I'm saying. And I think in general, flight students work better when they know they've got these deadlines and milestones to make instead of, when I'm ready, we'll call the examiner. And it's pretty common in the United States that your examiner is going to be booked out a couple weeks. So if I call the examiner at the end of my academy and say, hey, I'd like to book a flight instructor Checkride with you or schedule it through my flight school, very often I think the answer is that that examiner is booked out 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that, if I can put my mock oral deadline earlier, give myself at least a week in between those two events, should be a really good timeline that's realistic to be able to hold myself to and complete, so that too much time doesn't go by, but that I also can stay motivated and progressing towards my end goal of becoming a flight instructor. So what other options do you have besides a Flight Instructor Academy? I mentioned you could also do this training one-on-one. That's actually what I did when I was going through my flight instructor training. I hired a flight instructor who was qualified to give this training, and we met one-on-one for many sessions until I moved to the Checkride. Basically what would happen is he would assign me a topic to teach him. I would go home, I would write a lesson plan, I'd come teach it to him, he'd provide feedback, I'd go home and edit the lesson plan, we'd set another session, I would reteach that lesson, so you can see how slow the progress is as we move through multiple topics. And I paid that instructor a lot of money for all of that ground time together. Obviously was successful, but now on the other side, teaching an academy, see the benefits and would choose that path all day long if I could go back in time. I think I would have saved myself some time, some money, and would have gotten some better education out of it. I inherited all of my instructors' deficiencies, and in the academy class, I think there's a little more protection to that because you'll have multiple teachers. There's also other students I can learn from, where really I can avoid having one big gaping hole, hopefully, in my knowledge. The other thing is, when I did my training all one-on-one, it probably took me about 8 months to work through, because you think with this instructor, I would meet maybe once a week because I was working and I had school and other things, and I was writing lesson plans to prepare with him. Then sometimes a lesson would get canceled, or maybe he couldn't meet for a certain week. It drug out for a long time, and in academy, again, like I said, I think there's some protection to prevent that from occurring. The best steps you could take to prepare before going through an academy would be to take your written tests. I guess the same advice goes if you're training one-on-one with a flight instructor for your CFI rating, but take the Fundamentals of Instruction Knowledge Test and take the Flight Instructor Airplane Knowledge Test before you go to your academy or before you begin training with your instructor. You're just gonna save so much time because you know how to study for a written test at this point. You've taken a private one, an instrument one, a commercial one. I think you know what study skills work for you and what habits are going to be necessary to pass those written tests. That's not something that you need to do as part of your academy. And that way, when you show up to class, you're going to be ready to digest the information they're giving instead of how can I apply this to the written tests. The other thing I would do before attending an academy is I'd refresh on my commercial pilot level knowledge and my commercial pilot flying. So go out with an instructor if it's been a couple years since you passed your commercial and practice the maneuvers, or read back through some of the textbooks and study guides you have. That way, again, when you show up to your academy, you're ready to digest the information at the instructor level instead of, can you refresh this? I haven't looked over it in ages. That's really the best prep you can do for yourself. Well, that about wraps up today's video on the CFI Academy. If you have any questions, leave us a comment and don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.